In recognition of today, we did put together a proclamation that I'd like to read and then give this to Fern afterwards. It is whereas we are gathered today to observe the 150th anniversary of the death of Teoata Duta, also known as Chief Little Crow, on July 3rd, 1863. And whereas the Dakota War is a dark piece of Minnesota history and a part of Hutchinson's history. And whereas the war was caused by broken promises and the clash of two very different cultures. And whereas, while Little Crow reluctantly led the Dakota in war, his efforts to bridge the two cultures and help his people adapt to the inevitable changes that were coming to them and their way of life to prevent future conflict is not generally understood. And whereas many innocent people, both white and Dakota, were killed during and after the war, and many others suffered afterwards, and whereas fear, anger, retribution caused almost all of the Dakota to be exiled from their homeland and state, including those who didn't fight in the war and those who helped the settlers. And whereas the Dakota were treated inhumanely during their deportation, which caused much suffering and death, and whereas many of the descendants of the Dakotas, settlers, and soldiers continue to suffer today in their own ways. Therefore, let us remember the tragic events of the Dakota War of 1862 and its aftermath, and resolve to keep our promises and make every effort to understand one another, celebrate our differences and our diversity, and realize the blessing that it is to each of us and to our society in general. Furthermore, while we should not forget the past, let us resolve that we will forgive one another so we can continue the process of reconciliation and healing, so we may embrace each other as the children of God, the Creator, that we all are, and to live the lives that He expects of us, one that brings out the best in us and the best in others, and is in harmony with the world around us. Finally, let us resolve to treat everyone with the respect and dignity that we all deserve. Thanks.
Mendakiapi, my relatives. Chante Washteye Nabechu Sapiye. I greet you all with a good heart. I greet you with a warm handshake. I was honored to be asked by Mayor Cook to represent the direct lineal descendants of Teoata Duta. As I spoke with the other descendants who have exiled into South Dakota since 1862, many of them, I asked them, well, what should I say? What do you want me to, say? Is there anything that you think that the people should know? And most of them said, well, tell them we're still here. And which is interesting because after 1862, Teoata Duta's direct lineal descendants, his wives, exiled into South Dakota. And I am the granddaughter of his youngest wife, Sha Ichiawi, or her name, English name was Elizabeth Wakeman. And Elizabeth had 3 children when she was at the Fort Snelling. And one of them was my great-grandmother. So they had moved to the Sisseton-Wapton Dakota Reservation in northeastern South Dakota, where they continued to live in today. His descendants are still living there. It was about the year 2001, I think. I was living in Rapid City, South Dakota. I never had a desire to come to Minnesota. I always knew, growing up as a girl, that Little Crow was my great-great-grandfather, and my mother had just a big box of pictures that she inherited from her grandmother and her great-grandmother. And so living in Rapid City, South Dakota in the year 2000, I was working with youth. I was working in the school system, teaching, helping Native kids connect with their roots in culture, language, and so forth. And I just thought, I got roots. I have Dakota roots. Here I am in Lakota country. And so, it just dawned on me. And so I got a job over in Shakopee community in Prior Lake as a student support teacher. And I met a couple that live here in Hutchinson. And that was Jim and Lois Darragon. And when I met them, they said, they said, we live in Hutchinson. That's where your great-grandfather was killed. And, I really didn't keep up on that, as our family, that knowing that Minnesota was off limits to us, carried through the generations. And, we never felt comfortable coming to Minnesota, let alone, connecting with our roots. So I was really surprised to be, reconnected with my heritage and the culture. So Lois and Jim Darragon were very instrumental in my coming to Minnesota. In fact, they said, well, we've been praying for the Dakota people to come back to Minnesota. And we're so surprised that not only did we get a Dakota woman, but the great-great-granddaughter of the chief. So, it's like, yeah, well, there's work to do. And so, I got right on board and figuring this must be my calling, knowing that, there is an authority, I think, being a student of theology. You know that so-and-so begat, and was the son of, and so forth. And, genealogy is really important. So I take that seriously because, I'm direct descendant of the chief here in Minnesota, and the responsibilities that come with that today, in today's world. How do I become a good leader for our people in today's world? Well, number one, I'm a pastor. I give out, good sermons, which I won't promise I won't do today. I try to, be a good role model for my own family. But to put that in a larger context of a nation, Oyate, Dakota Oyate. Since coming to Minnesota in 2001, we have been involved in the run that it takes place on December 26th. My children ran, I ran, and we always supported the run because it's for peace and reconciliation. It came to us through a dream that if the people ran to the hanging site on this night, that non-natives will come. And when the non-natives come and support the Dakota people, that's the time when peace and reconciliation will come. So that started in 1985. So we were a part of that. And 2006, Jim Miller had a dream on a horse, if they would do the horse ride. And so we were part of that as well, for healing and reconciliation. I think Taoyate Duta, my great-great-grandfather, would want us to carry that message on forward. As a leader, you have to look at the people. You have to see what's good for the people. And being a good student of theology, forgiveness is the first step. So, there's enough said. There's a lot of people that, as Dean Erdahl and Mayor Cook pointed out, that would want to continue that, the walls, and continue that battle and pull it forward today. But for us as Dakota people, we need to heal. And healing starts from within. So we're working really hard from within our own families, within our own communities, within our own nations to heal and go forward. And for the people of Minnesota and all the others that were involved, unfortunately, with the many deaths and bad feelings, it's unfortunate, as was brought out, that war is unfortunate. But those who survive, in order for them to go forward in a good way and to heal, is to forgive. We don't just, for the history books have tried to document. They're written down somewhere. For us, we're oral people. They're written in our stories, and we pass on. It isn't that we don't forget, but in order to go on, we need to forgive, and so that we can tell our children, yes, this happened. This happened, and it was unfortunate, and we learn from our experiences, and we become stronger as we go forward. And it isn't that it isn't that we're going to, as some of our Dakota people said, continue to be doormats for the dominant society, which is kind of self-destructive in its own, it's a statement. No, we're not. We are, people that had a lot of dignity. We're smart. We have a good connection to the earth. We have a good connection to our Creator. And as we hang on and we nurture these and begin to look at ourselves as who we are as a people and who we were before the coming of the Europeans to this country, we need to connect with that. And that's what I always tell the children. We need to go back to a time when we had our dignity and self-respect, when we were able to be productive in all that we did. So these are some of the things that reconciliation brings, not only with the dominant culture, but within a nation. So I just want to thank everybody for coming today. I wish more of my relatives would have been here, but they're having a big powwow in Sisseton, South Dakota. That's where they're all at. And it goes on. Life goes on for us, and that's a very important part, because powwows are social time where we get together and we do everything from talking about family matters to nation matters to tribal matters, and then we dance and we have a good time. So those things are going on today, and they extend their apologies for not being here. And so thank you, City of Hutchinson. Thank you, State of Minnesota. Thank you, Mayor, for all the recognition that you did to my great-great-grandfather, Taoyate Duta. Pinamiaya.